I'd like to have everybody to introduce themselves, and I'll start here and we'll go around. Ross Strickland, I've been on the board, so I've been told, for about 20 years, I think.
Dennis Evans, I've been on for 5 or 6, I believe, of your 20 like years.
I'm Bill Lump. It's my first night. Been on the planning board about 5 years.
Brian West, first night for any of it.
Wayne Sears, I come via the planning board.
Tommy Sasser, I've been by like Ross, I've been on it several years.
Eddie Thomas, I've been on it several years too. I couldn't tell you how long, but I tell you, since you've been here, Miss Moss, I've been in this room more since you've been here than the whole time put together.
I agree.
Well, thank you for participating and thank you for your service, and glad this is the first time since I've been here we actually had a full board. Thank you. And I will let the record reflect that we do have a quorum.
I guess we're gonna be swearing in some new members now.
Yes.
We have somebody to handle that service?
We do. Sean Lucas will come up, so for the, I believe we have Brian West, Wayne Sears,
Yeah, these three in the middle.
and Bill Long. So I believe we can take those. And I get you all to sign these, just return.
Just repeat it, we want to put it by CC name. I, Wayne Sears,
Brian West,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support
support
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution and laws
and the Constitution and laws
of North Carolina,
of North Carolina,
not inconsistent
not inconsistent
therewith,
therewith,
and that I will faithfully fulfill
and that I will faithfully fulfill
perform the duties
perform the duties
as a member
as a member
of the Board of Adjustment
of the Board of Adjustment
of the Town of Nashville,
of the Town of Nashville,
which I am about to enter
without a time to enter
according to
according to
the best of my skills
the best of my skill
and my ability.
and my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
All right, I'm somewhat saddened that there's not representation of a lady here in this group, and I'm saddened as well that the planning board is going to be losing their only female member
Been
of
through
the
Jacqueline.
group. No,
Jacqueline.
the what now?
Jacqueline's on there.
Oh, okay, she's not here, okay, well, we need somebody to keep us in check. Okay. Next on the agenda is, election of officers. And A being the chairman. We're open for any nominations to elect the chairman.
I think Ross has done a good year over his year, done a good job, so I nominate Ross again.
Second.
Okay, nomination, any more for nomination? Okay. Your nomination being, closed? Okay. Ross Strickland has been, nominated as being the upcoming chairman. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Disapprove, say aye. Okay, or nay. Okay, next up is vice chairman.
Who was vice
I
chairman?
nominated Eddie Thomas.
Second.
I'll second that.
Okay, nomination's been made, it's been seconded. Eddie Thomas.
I still remember who it was.
Any more nominations? Okay. We'll close that nomination. All in favor of choosing Eddie Thomas as vice chairman, say aye.
Aye.
Disapprove, nay. Okay. Minutes of the preceding meeting, which was held November the 30th.
October.
Oh,
You have a,
correction.
are you in the, Board of Adjustment?
Yes.
Thank you.
No, how about that?
October 6th.
When we moved it on. Yeah, we go. We got started. Okay, for October the 6th. I'm embarrassed to ask for those amendments in this packet.
Yes, right behind the agenda.
Okay.
Page 2.
So I hear a motion, has everybody had the opportunity to review those as such? So I have a motion that we accept them as printed.
I make a motion.
Second.
A second?
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion second to approve the minutes as being printed. All in favor say aye. Okay.
And I just wanna, jump in right quick. I know next we have the, meeting schedule. You look on the meeting schedule, the October and November, the date is correct, but the year is supposed to be 2023. I had 2022, but somehow those two, did I put? Oh, well, yeah. It's supposed to be 2023, but the actual date is correct, it's just the wrong one.
Okay. Item number 7, Board of Adjustment Procedure.
Can we approve,
Six.
approve the meeting schedule?
Ma'am?
Approve the meeting schedule?
Yes, it's been approved.
Motion?
I make a motion to approve the
Second.
schedule.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Now, number 7. Board of Adjustment Procedure for Evidentiary Hearings.
Okay, and I can go through that, briefly for you. So this is the procedure that I'm about to, go through for the quasi judicial public hearing for this variance request B 2023-01. So this application for a variance request requires an evidentiary hearing on the application, which will be heard by the Board of Adjustment acting as a quasi judicial board. The purpose of this hearing is to gather legally acceptable evidence in order to establish sufficient facts to apply the applicable ordinance. The purpose is not to gather public opinion about the desirability of the project. The Board of Adjustment should not discuss or receive information about the merits of the case from the parties or members of the public before the hearing. All testimony before the Board of Adjustment must be sworn testimony. All persons wishing to speak on this matter must be sworn in. Applicants may elect to be represented by legal counsel. The applicant has the burden of producing sufficient, substantial, competent, and material evidence for the Board of Adjustment to conclude that the criteria of the applicable ordinances have been met. Staff would not provide a recommendation on denial or approval of the case until after the evidentiary hearing is closed. All evidence must be presented and considered before a recommendation can be submitted. After the hearing is closed, staff will be prepared to make their recommendation to the board. So the procedure for the hearing, anyone speaking in this hearing should be signed in with planning staff, in which I believe we have 2 members that signed up, and which everyone would be sworn in. Once the hearing is open and preliminary matters are addressed, staff will present its statements, present the staff report. The applicant is called on afterwards to present the argument and evidence in support of the application, followed by others who wish to speak in support or opposition of the application. Board members may pose questions to the applicant and the speakers who spoke in support or opposition of the application. Persons opposed to the application are invited to speak. Board members may pose questions who spoke in opposition as well. Both sides are permitted to question the other side and present rebuttals. The Board of Adjustment chairperson closes the period for public discussion. The board then deliberates. In the course of the deliberation, the board members may ask questions of the staff. The applicant or others who have testified beyond that, additional comments from the floor will be admitted only at the discretion of the Board of Adjustment chairperson. Additional cross-examination and rebuttals may be made only on new evidence presented. The public hearing is then closed. Staff makes a recommendation to the board at this time, and the Board of Adjustment will render a decision. And so, again, this is a quasi-judicial hearing, and the Board of Adjustment has findings of facts that it will consider to make their decision, which is also included in here, and the ways you can vote to approve, deny, or approve with conditions. And in your, well, I'll wait for you to, you can go to the next item before I go into the actual packet. So now you can open up your public hearing. Motion to go into public hearing. And you have a cheat sheet in your book. There's a cheat sheet in your book of the public hearing. In front of it.
It's the last plastic one. Or one more.
That's your script.
Okay, where are we now? Part 3?
So, no, you're at the beginning. So now you can go, now you can, entertain a motion to go
Okay,
into
yeah,
public hearing.
okay. Yeah. Okay. I now open the public hearing on the following application. This is a public hearing on an application for case number V2023-01, which is a variance request for 726 East Washington Street and 100 North Wheelers Drive. Public hearings are recorded for public record. All testimony must be presented after you give your full name and address.
So who,
Here's the sign-on sheet, right here, it's done. Okay, we'd like to swear in, do they all both get sworn in at the same time as they speak?
you can swear them in at both at the same time.
Okay. We have, Tim Freeman and Mr. Mike Gaynor. Be sworn in.
I'll swear in too.
Yeah, y'all need to come up. All right.
You have to open. Swear to tell the truth, nothing but the truth, so help me God. Yeah, you can make the motion to enter into the public hearing.
make a motion for what name?
To go into public hearing.
To enter into the public hearing.
Yes.
Okay.
Make a motion.
Motion's on the floor.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we've opened the public hearing. And, is there anyone who is not signed wish to speak on this case?
So we've all signed in. I will go ahead and, go into my,
Okay, this one in.
yeah, I'll go into my statement.
Okay.
So in the, packet here, going to the staff report and the applicant and what was made by applicant. So we have, Timothy Freeman. He's the property owner as well as the applicant who has placed applicant for a variance request. So this variance request is to allow reduced setbacks from the minimum requirements of the Nashville Code of Ordinances for a property located at 726 East Washington Street and 101 North Willis Drive. PIN number 3801-2090-5121. The property is on B1 General Business or Highway Business Zoning District and consists of 1.246 acres. The property owner is proposing to subdivide the property to separate the warehouse from the former appliance store. But subdividing the property will cause the existing accessory warehouse to become a primary building instead of an accessory building, requiring the building to meet the setbacks as set forth in the dimensional table included within this document. If subdivided, the property will meet the minimum lot area for the B1 zoning district, which is 4,000 square foot minimum lot area, and it will meet that, but it will not meet the required minimum setbacks, which is, the minimum setbacks in this zoning district is 10 feet. And right now, the side and rear, have 10-foot required setback, minimum requirements. And right now, I believe the side and the rear are like at 7 point something feet. So the ordinance requires that all new lot lines be designed so that existing and proposed buildings will comply with the required building setbacks of the applicable zoning district. In this case, only one new lot line is proposed, separating the two structures, and that is on North Willis Drive, leaving the other existing property lines as is. And with the zoning and land use, north of the property, you have the residential apartments that's off of North Willis Drive. South of the property is zone B1, which is commercial. East of the property is also B1, and you have commercial apartments there. And west of the property is also B1 and commercial. So everything is in B1 and within this subject property. And also on page 9, you have photos showing the sign was posted on the properties. And page 10, you see other photos of the petition property. And this one you see photos of the front building, which faces Washington Street, and the existing warehouse structure that's off of at 100 Willis Drive. And then you have the Google Earth Pro photo showing an overview of the property and of the subject property and the surrounding properties that's nearby. And then also next you have, I placed an old photo that I found on Google Earth Pro using the history from back in 1994, showing before the apartments were there. And so this building was constructed before ownership, before Mr. Freeman purchased the property. It was at one time, I believe, owned by CP&L. So the building was already constructed there. And the zoning map, so in this case, the B1 is in neighborhood services, which is consistent with the future land use map. And you have your description of district of the B1 zoning district. that's defined as certain commercial areas which provide a wide selection of convenience and comparison shopping outlets, furniture showrooms, and for personal services, and an orderly arrangement of retail facilities, parking, and other amenities. Then you have your dimensional requirements for your B1 zoning district. I just took a snippet from the actual table showing the minimum lot size is 4,000 square foot minimum requirement. Lot width is 40. Front yard setback is 25, side setback is 10, side street back is 12 and a half, and your rear yard setback is 10. And also listed here is your re-subdivision procedure, specifically stating that number 3, all new lot lines must be designed so the existing and proposed buildings will comply with the required building setbacks of the applicable zoning district. In this case, the building was already there. And staff notes, the completed variance application was submitted to the planning department on January 13th, 2023, which is 3 weeks prior to tonight's meeting, which is in compliance with the regulations. Letters of public hearing notification was mailed out on January 17th to approximately 7 property owners that were adjacent and abutting 726 East Washington Street and 100 North Willis Drive for the January 31st Board of Adjustment meeting. Public hearing notice was published for 2 consecutive weeks in the Nashville Graphic on 119 and 126 prior to the January 31st Board of Adjustment meeting. Property was posted with a public hearing sign on January 19th. Subject property is approximately plus or minus 1.246 acres. The subject property is not located in a flood hazard zone. Subject property is not located within the NCDQ water supply watershed. Zoning permit was issued on 3/19/2002 as an accessory commercial building. A recombination plat was recorded with the Nash County Register of Deeds on August the 2nd, 2002. Book 30, page 132, adding the warehouse as an accessory structure to the property of 726 East Washington Street with new lot lines. And if approved, the proposed property will comply with the 4,000 square feet minimum lot size requirement of the B1 zoning district per attached minor preliminary plat, but the existing structure will not meet the required setbacks within the B1 zoning district for actual primary structure. So once that lot is split, it will lose the accessory use requirements and become a primary structure. In which, that's the reason for the variance. So staff analysis and findings. In order to meet the requirements of the zoning ordinance and the North Carolina statutes for granting a variance, the planning department has determined that the board must find that the following 6 statements are true as applied to the variance request. Board members should not decide how they will vote on the variance request until after they have considered each statement on its own merits. According to North Carolina Institute of Government, if any of the required statements are found not true, then the variance should be denied. So going into the findings and staff comments. Number 1, that the special conditions and circumstances exist which are peculiar to the land, structure, or building involved and which are not applicable to other land structures or buildings in the same district. Staff comments, the petition property is located in the B1 Highway Business District, zoning district with a primary building and a commercial accessory building on it. The accessory building was previously located on the adjacent lot before it was recombined with the former appliance building. Now the owner would like to subdivide the property of 726 East Washington Street and 101 North Willis Drive, but is unable to do so because the accessory building would become the primary building and will not meet the required setbacks of the B1 zoning district. 2, that the literal interpretation of the provisions of this ordinance would deprive the applicant of a right commonly enjoyed by other properties in the same district under the terms of this ordinance. Staff comments, the existing accessory building would not meet the required setbacks if the lot is subdivided, but could be used for many uses within the B1 zoning district. 3, that the special conditions and circumstances do not result from the actions of the applicant. The accessory building was already existing prior to ownership of Mr. Freeman. Although the existing building was always used as an accessory building, subdividing the lot would result in a self-created hardship. That, number 4, that granting the variance would not confer on the applicant any special privilege that is denied by this article to other lands, structures, or buildings in the same district. Staff comments, if the variance is granted, the existing warehouse can be on its own separate lot and be permitted for B1 land uses as indicated within the table of permitted uses. That if granted, number 5, that if granted, the variance requested will be in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the ordinance and will preserve its spirit. Staff comments, the variance will be in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the ordinance and will preserve its spirit. The property will comply with the minimum lot area requirements and allow permitted uses within the B1 zoning district. And number 6, that if granted, the variance will secure the public safety and welfare and will do substantial justice. And staff agrees with that finding. And also in your packet, you have your application, which was completed and signed by Timothy and Yvonne Freeman. And I just go through the statement of justification along with their findings of what they have, that's requirement for findings. Application is hereby made by the following variance. Briefly describe the variance request below. The applicant indicated that owner proposes to subdivide the property into 2 lots. The proposed lot 1 contained an accessory building to the adjoining apartment complex and was a portion of that property. The proposed lot 1 was then combined with proposed lot 2 to create 1 lot, and the accessory building did not violate setback requirements because it was treated as an accessory building. If the lot is subdivided, then the accessory building will become a primary building and will violate the setback requirements. And going down to the actual findings of fact, A, that special conditions and circumstances exist which are peculiar to the land, structure, or building involved, and which are not applicable to other land, structures, or buildings in the same district. The applicant states that because this building was originally constructed and used as an accessory building, the setback requirements were not the same as if the building had been built as a primary structure. The adjoining proposed lot 2 is more usable without proposed lot 1. In order for proposed lot 2 to become a desirable lot to be developed, proposed lot 1 will have to be subdivided, and the building on proposed lot 1 will not be usable, thereby requiring the owner to tear down the valuable structure. B, that a literal interpretation of the provisions of this ordinance would deprive the applicant of a right commonly enjoyed by other properties in the same district under the terms of this article. The applicant states that a literal interpretation of the setback requirements would require demolition of this building. This building is unique as it was originally constructed as an accessory building to the adjoining apartment complex and has been put to good use over the years. The building has many uses remaining and should not be destroyed. C, that the special conditions and circumstances do not result from the actions of the applicant. The applicant did not construct the accessory building on the current lot and simply desires to subdivide the lots to create better use for both lots and utilize the existing structures on the lots. D, that granting the variance requested will not confer on the applicant any special privilege that is denied by this applicant to other land, structures, or buildings in the same district. The granting of the variance will simply allow an existing building to be used in a B1 district, allowing for proper usage of the land for businesses within the town limits of Nashville and will not result in any special privilege. Further, the requested variance is consistent with the spirit, purpose, and intent of the ordinance, such as public safety is secured and substantial justice is achieved. And you also have, and again, you have signatures by Mr. Freeman. And then you have your meets and bounds. And up under the meets and bounds, I was able to, I know it's very small, but the register of deeds would not let me print anything. As you know, their system was crashed, had crashed not too long ago. So I was able to clip the reference of what was referenced in the meets and bounds of plat book page 26, plat book 26, page 141, showing the building right here, if you see me hovering over here, and it was on its own separate lot before, and this was recorded back in November 1998. And then here's a copy of the actual zoning application that was issued by the zoning, by the planning department back in March of 2002. And then here's the actual plat that was, recombination plat that was recorded in, later in 2002, showing the building being recombined with the building of 726 East Washington Street. And now this is an existing, most current survey that they just recently had done back in December of 2022, showing the layout of the actual lot. And the next, this is a preliminary plat showing the proposed minor subdivision of the two buildings. And you also have the abutting and nearby property owners listing, followed by the dimensional criteria showing the minimum lot size setbacks of the B1 zoning district. And also in your packet, you also have your variance worksheet of what I just went over, of the findings of fact. And also you have, in addition to that, you have your final order in what would be approved or denied for granting this variance. And the last page shows what your board action is, to motion to deny the application, and your suggested motion to approve, and suggested motion to grant the application with conditions. And that's all I have. And we do have two people who signed up to also give testimony.
Okay.
I know that was a lot.
All right, did anybody have any questions for Ms. Morris?
So on the setbacks, it was kind of conflicting. So it'll meet B1 code, but if he sells it, is the town gonna require that building to be demolished?
We can't require, that's the purpose of getting the variance. So if you approve the variance, then the owner will be able to go forward with the actual minor subdivision. And like I said again, if it's approved, we can make sure we have that note on that minor subdivision that the Board of Adjustment approved the variance for reduced setbacks.
Now, you go back to page 18, right in the middle of that page. That's the building we're talking about, right?
Yes, right here, yes.
And when it says here setbacks from the rear is 10 feet, right?
The minimum, the requirement,
Yeah, the minimum was 10 feet.
right.
And at that time, there was no problem, I would assume.
Right, because it was an accessory
When
building.
did the apartment show up? That's when this 10 feet disappeared.
Well, okay, so the difference is with the accessory structures are, you can do 6 feet from the side or rear.
Okay,
And so they did 7.
okay.
So if, if he's proposing to subdivide the property, that accessory goes away and it becomes a main structure, a main primary building, which has to meet the actual 10-foot side and rear setbacks. And the front, the front never, it doesn't meet the 25-foot setback anyway, so they will have to get variance from the front, side, and rear. But it meets it on one of the sides, but not on the other side.
Should the applicant receive the requested variance approval, who would be inconvenienced?
No one. I mean, the applicant, I mean, it wouldn't be an inconvenience where if he could separate the lot, then that would be beneficial for him.
But nobody else would be inconvenienced.
No, no. Because the apartments, everybody that's on other adjacent lots, they're not that close. They still have, they meet the proper setbacks.
And it's fenced off anyway, isn't it?
Then I'm not sure. Well, we can ask Steve
Okay.
when he comes up. Yeah.
Okay.
So when the
It's a
recombination,
very unique situation.
so the recombination was done in 2002, since it was a secondary building, not a primary.
It was a
setbacks were
secondary.
different.
But initially it was a primary building, right?
No,
No.
no.
It never was a
Never
primary
was.
building.
No.
Okay, okay.
It was secondary to CP&L.
It was.
Well,
Yeah.
so I think, I mean, can I?
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Okay, yeah.
So we can let him come up.
All right.
If you look
Mike-
at, I'm
Mr. Mike
sorry,
Gaynor.
I'm Mike Gaynor. I'm an attorney with Battle Winslow in Rocky Mount, and I'm representing Mr. Freeman tonight. Thank you, Ms. Moss, for all that information. But if you go to your packet and look at page 17, page 17 in my packet, which is the meets and bounds description plus the map. So that building was actually a primary building when that map was drawn, because the apartments did not exist. It was a primary building on that lot, and it actually violated the setback requirements on the side street when it was built. That must have been approved at some point in time prior to that, but it did violate the side street setback. It's about 9 feet off the side street. And then the apartments were built, and there was a subdivision and recombination plat, which is shown on page 19, which included the front lot, which then created it as an accessory building, which cured the setback violation. And so now we have the request to separate these 2 lots, which we believe is the best use of the 2 lots. There's Mr. Freeman retired. He closed his business. He has a vacant building there. He would like to either sell the building or lease the building to somebody who would put a thriving business in that space. They are not interested in the back portion of the property, and any use of the property without a variance on the setback would require the building to be torn down. The building does still have very much use left in it, either as a warehouse or as some other use.
So, question, I know it's gonna benefit Mr. Freeman, but if he sells the property, the secondary property, and it doesn't meet the variance, would the new owner be able to use that building for anything?
The variance goes with the land.
Okay, right.
And the new owner, if they were to purchase the warehouse as it sits, they would be able to use it.
Okay.
I think there's been some discussion about requiring any new build, if the warehouse were removed and any new building be put there, that would have to meet the setback requirements, and I our request is simply to not require him to tear down a perfectly good building in order to be able to sell the front lot for its highest and best use as well.
So if the building was, if the back lot was sold with the building in the B1, could it be used as is for somebody who would have to go in there and do other things to meet other codes?
Yes, it'll meet, if they're going in for B1, they have to have a B1 use, a permitted B1 use.
So everything is okay except for the setbacks, there's no other conditions?
The only other thing, it'll probably have to, depending on what parking regulations is.
That's the question I had, because the parking was all going in the front part. Is that my understanding?
The parking is, well, the parking is on, if you look at page 21, the parking would be in the front of the building, in the front door of the building, as it's shown, any parking for the structure would be in the front door of the building, which, I mean, the lot is actually associated so that the side street is the front of the lot, as it faces the street, but the parking would be over to the side, I guess, the south of the building.
And the vacant lot beside it on the west side, that belongs to the apartment complex, correct?
That is correct, yes. That has been recombined with the apartment complex. I mean, it was subdivided, and that is the apartment complex lot.
That's not in use for anything other than cutting grass.
I'm not sure what's.
Russell, Tim Freeman, are you talking about the grass area?
Right beside the warehouse, on the west side, towards the advanced store.
That is woodland, which is owned by the apartment complex.
Yeah.
Then there is a vacant lot between that and the auto parts store. That is their property.
Okay.
That is the auto parts property.
Mr. Gaines,
Yes, sir.
you've already said that your client would be harmed if not allowed to go forth with this. In your opinion, would anybody else be impacted? Obviously, he would be harmed, but is anybody else?
I do not believe anybody else would be impacted because there would be no change in the use of the property, except that it may be used for something different permitted in a B1 district. But this is still being used as what would be permitted in a B1 district, which was for storage and warehousing. As warehousing, probably using the term loosely, but Mr. Freeman used it for his, storing his appliances for his business.
So on page 10, it shows a picture of the front. I just want to make sure I'm clear on my understanding. So, and we don't have a couple pictures we probably need, but where the grassy area, that's pretty much the front, right? There's no.
That is the front of the building, which is, that's the front of the building, but that would be considered the side of the lot.
Mm-hmm. I'm just referring to parking. That's the parking area.
So the parking, whether on page 10, those three white vehicles, that's parking for the apartments. So that'd be on the northwest side of this building in question.
Oh, you're talking about the area of the building.
Yeah, the parking for the apartments. Yeah, that parking for the building. That park's owned by the apartments situated.
Those three cars,
And then the
those
green
three
is
cars
wood.
are actually parked on property owned by the apartments.
Yeah, that's on the apartments.
So the only parking on the property of that building that we're concerned about is immediately in front.
Immediately in front, correct?
Does it have the minimum parking places?
That will be determined once a zoning permit is issued. The number of parking spaces.
Okay.
Tim, I'm okay with setbacks and all. My question is the way you're doing this, that parking lot, the paved area between the accessory building and your old store, Why is that not being carved out with accessibility just to give them parking on the street side?
There will be, it's an acre and a quarter of land.
Yes, sir.
The proposal is to have 1 acre of land to go with the main building up on Washington Street.
Right.
A quarter of an acre of land to go with the, existing metal building. So there will be,
Again, it's not, I'm just curious.
yeah, there is, once you draw the line of an acre,
Yep.
there is still parking, paved parking area, probably, I'm gonna, top of my head, 15 cars.
So that does go with the portion you're setting aside.
Yep, part of that parking lot, that major parking lot,
Does go
will
with.
go with the
Okay.
metal building.
Okay.
Not all of it will go with the 1 acre of land going with the main building.
But I think to also answer your question is the highest and best use of the lot that faces Washington Street is at the 1 acre size. I mean, that is the benefit of that lot there. That's, if a developer were to come in and want to purchase it, most uses require an acre. And the line that is drawn here is done as kind of a natural dividing point, which does provide sufficient parking for the use in the back, as well as the 1 acre required for anybody who would want to purchase the front, or to use it for that matter for the existing building.
So the 1 acre is, for marketing purposes of the front property, not a requirement of the town or the ordinance.
That is correct. That is correct. It is for purposes of for marketing purposes that it be 1 acre. And also any additional space would not cure the setback requirements.
Right, I understand.
I mean, there would, because that's not where the issue is.
Anybody else have any more questions? Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Moving right along.
I have another question for Sherry.
Okay.
So, if approved, that back lot with the size of it, and it can be used for a B1 use with the size of it and the land is allowed.
Yes, because it meets the minimum lot size requirement for the B1 zoning district.
Okay.
So any B1 use, can go and,
I still want to create
Be
that problem.
permitted.
We're
Right.
fixing a problem, but I don't want to create
Right.
that problem. So.
right,
This is just solely a setback issue,
Yeah,
nothing else.
just
That's it.
just a setback issue.
Yeah.
And the Board of Adjustment has, you have the power to grant that.
Next one is kind of redundant, isn't it?
Hmm?
This next one is, there is any interested party in the audience that wishes to speak regarding the variance of request?
Is no one else here?
No one is? Yeah, okay.
It's raining.
There are no more public comments. I will now close the public comment portion of the public hearing. Does the applicant wish to respond to any of the comments? I think it's already been covered, yeah. Before we turn to board member questions and deliberations, I want to state that the documents included within the record for this quasi-judicial public hearing include all application materials submitted by the applicant, all materials included in the Board of Adjustment packets, any PowerPoint or other presentations given this evening, all written, referral, and public comments received regarding the application, the public comment sign-up sheet, and other applicable regulations. Did I miss anything there?
You didn't?
I will now close the public hearing, and the Board of Adjustment members will deliberate on the evidence presented. During deliberations, board members may ask questions of town staff, but no further public comment or other testimony or evidence will be received. So we can ask town staff while we're going through this procedure. our different questions.
Your worksheet.
Page 24.
Yes.
Okay. The Board of Adjustment for the Town of Nashville, having held a public hearing on the 31st day of January 23 to consider case B 2023-01, submitted by Tim and Yvonne Freeman, to allow reduced setbacks from the minimum requirements of the Nashville Code of Ordinances for property located at 726 East Washington Street and 101 North Wheeler Street. Identification number 380, 120, 905, 121. The property is zoned B1, general business, zoning district, and having heard all of the evidence and arguments presented at the hearing, it makes the following findings of fact and draws the following conclusions. Number one, it is the board's conclusion that special conditions and circumstances exist which are peculiar to the land, structure, or building involved, which are not applicable to other lands, structures, or buildings in the same district. This conclusion is based on the following findings of fact. Is that statement true or false? True. It is the board's conclusion that the literal interpretation of the provisions of this ordinance will deprive the applicant of the right commonly enjoyed by other properties in the same district under the terms of the ordinance. This conclusion is based on the following findings of fact. Statement is true or false? True. It is the board's conclusion that the special conditions and circumstances do not result from the actions of the applicant. This conclusion is based on the following findings of the fact. Is the statement true or false?
True.
It is the board's conclusion that granting the variance requested will not confer on the applicant any special privilege that is denied by this ordinance to other lands, structures, or buildings in the same district. This conclusion is based on the following findings of fact. True or false?
True.
It is the board's conclusion that if granted, the variance will be in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the ordinance and will preserve its spirit. This conclusion is based on all of the findings of fact listed above. Is this statement true or false? True. It is the board's conclusion that if granted, the variance will secure the public safety and welfare and will do substantial justice. This conclusion is based on all the findings of fact listed above. True or false? True.
Okay, so now the order granting the variance is the exact same. So now you can, if you're ready, you can go
So
ahead.
we have a motion, make a motion. I entertain a motion that we accept, that we allow this variance to come to be.
I'll make a motion to approve the order granting the variance request for the property located at 726 West Washington Street and 100 North Wheeler Drive.
Right. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Unanimous, pass.
Now you can close the public hearing.
All right. I entertain a motion that we go out of the public hearing.
Make a motion.
Motion. Second, favor? Aye.
Uh-huh.
Okay, motion, public hearing has been adjourned.
next,
I forgot to ask Tim drive a fire truck down there.
the next meeting is, February 28th, pending items, and then we can motion and second to adjourn.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
I second.
Somebody
All in favor?
Ah.
Who second?
Meeting is